So the demo script really is meant to be after the generic customer presentation where we're explaining what it is. So ideally, you'd have already had the conversation about what tiering is and why it's important, because still to this date, a lot of our customers not yet even began their journey of doing tiering to begin with. So this is kind of like the second phase where I would go into a generic screenshot demo if I needed to, but ideally I would do a lot of this different stuff live. So I posted this PowerPoint. You see the link in the chat. Feel free to go in there. Don't modify the slides. I did give y'all edit rights, but you look at the different speaker notes, and that's the main things that I'm trying to hit upon when I'm doing a little bit of storytelling. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. This is right after doing the customer presentation. Quest On Demand Security Guardian is part of our ISO certified SOC 2 certified platform. The main thing we're trying to help you adhere to after you've certified and have acknowledged that you have your control plane established is to capture the drift that is occurring. So in this instance, I see a new domain controller, DC7. I am aware of this. I will choose to be able to certify that different object. But I have other different objects that I'm not aware of. Take, for instance, the Chicago admins group. I don't know what it is. Why is this showing up? I am the system owner for Active Directory, so it's my responsibility to investigate why has this state been deviated from. So I can click investigate, and I can quickly see, well, this is because this guy right here, Bob Krebs, he manually added this person and categorized them as tier 0. We have the ability to manually add and categorize any objects that you should know as tier 0. By default, we look through some different objects that we always know about. So this is an example where Bob manually added them out there. But I have another group out here, CD privileged access. I don't know if that's a compact disk privileged access. I really don't know what this object is. So it's my responsibility now to investigate. And when I click investigate, I do have integration with Bloodhound Enterprise in this environment. So where you see the tier 0 impact, this is through our integration with Bloodhound Enterprise. And I can see that this group is a direct member of one tier 0 group that's out there. And there's 3 members in this group. But I'm really focused on why is this being categorized as tier 0. With that set in mind, I'm going to click View Recent Activity, and it will bring up information where I can see exactly why. So here's all the information from Security Guardian containing the historic data of how things have changed on this different object. And right here, I can see Cameron Dench added this person into the built-in administrators group. So this is why it is being categorized as tier 0. So my options now in a real world, if I don't know who this is and I'm the system owner for Active Directory, I may talk to Cameron like a human, like, hey, why did you do this? Is this legit? We can have a conversation. If it's not legit after my screening, we may revert the change. Maybe Cameron didn't know that this is doing the NIST relationships, granting tier 0 rights. If it's an approved application in my organization, I now have the information where I may choose to certify that this is legit part of the control plane, so I should start treating these different objects differently. Which takes us to the next part of Security Guardian, which is our ability to help you within a reference architecture put additional controls on those objects that, if impacted, could affect the entire organization. So in Security Guardian, I can click on this little checkbox for all my categorized tier 0 stuff, even stuff I've added in there, so I can treat these objects a little bit differently. When I click this little checkbox and enable protection, this is how we can work as part of a broader reference architecture. We know most organizations already have a PAM tool. Maybe you have CyberArk or One Identity Safeguard, or you have active roles. We can remove the implicit relationships in Active Directory, so now you can have to go through an explicit process to be able to make a change. So this is where you may want to consider, okay, for a change that could affect everything in the organization, maybe you have multiple levels of approval in CyberArk, and you have an account that could be checked out, and that's the only account that can make the different changes to these different object sets. So we can list just those different objects to be allowed to make that different change. So this is a big part of where ITDR, the Identity Threat Detection and Response space, is different than what you see in Gartner as the PAM space, the Privileged Access Management, or the IGA space. We can work in conjunction with those technologies that you already have. The other part of Security Guardian is going to be analyzing a lot of the different state-based data that you have out there. Ideally, you're going to check a checkbox in the configuration assessment where we continuously update and allow you to see the new assessment data as it's changing. As you can see here, this will work cross-forest, cross-domains, and I can start analyzing some of the different state-based misconfigurations that we are not adhering to in our organization. We've mapped out and categorized a lot of these different areas to like the MITRE attack matrix. And you can see some of these different best practices that are not being adhered to. I can also see the trending analysis to see if I'm in fact getting better or worse over time on each individual vulnerability and assessment data. One example I'll go to here, privileged user accounts whose passwords have not changed recently. I can click on this and track progress, and I can quickly see I have an account that hasn't had a password changed since 2009. So if it's a privileged account and you're using a PAM tool, well, best practice in the industry is to have those password hashes rotated, check in and check out. If it's a service account, well, this is where people should be using GMSA, so those passwords can be managed by the system and change automatically over a period of time as well. So all these different things here for your privileged accounts, they should be treated differently and should have different controls put in place. So here I can click to export a list and maybe give this to the PAM team so they can start deciding on putting these under the control of the password safe technology that the organization's already invested in. Another example is around findings. Findings is a combination of the state-based data as well as change data together. So the first example I'm going to go to is Tier 0 group policy object changes. When I click on this, I can see I have some group policies that have still not yet been certified. So I haven't followed the full process to certify and acknowledge that these objects, if impacted, could affect the entire organization. So I may choose to go back and acknowledge and govern some of these specific GPOs out there. In this instance, I'm going to click on the next tab where am I exposed? This is going to present me the state-based data, what an attacker could do. You see the protection findings. This is unique to Quest. The fact that we have our allow list capabilities for on-premises allows us to put additional controls, removing those implicit relationships. So this is checking those Tier 0 objects to see if it's under the control of our different system, where we can add those additional controls as people adhere to zero trust architectures. The bottom item, we had a audit finding. Somebody did something. Here you can see domain level group policy link changes detected. I can click on this link, which will take me to this additional finding where I can now view the activity as to what happened. So I see that somebody made a change here. Well, my next logical question is, who did it? Now I can see that this person right here, this bpatent at titancorp.net, they linked a GPO at the domain head, which gave these different permissions. So if this was inadvertent, I could remove it immediately, or I could choose to agree that this was good to go at that period of time. In this example, you can see they unlinked it and they linked it back again. So this was, in fact, a legit operation. But it's something I need to acknowledge because this change could have affected the entire organization. You know, obviously it did because it linked there. It was the same GPO, not causing anything different, but you know, changes can be made. Another finding that I'm pointing out is unusual increase in permission changes to Active Directory objects. So as you're looking at your NIST controls, for example, in building out your security program, you'll see that word anomalous activity. We're baselining what's normal for different activity so we can identify when we have anomalous activity. These are the needles in the haystack that the SOC needs to be able to see of differences based on activity that's happening in Active Directory. So I can click on this unusual increase, get more information around how things are deviating from the normal activity state. And when I click View Critical Activity, I can see what's going on here. I can see exactly what date it changed and it spiked on. I can click View All Events. And in this instance, I see a lot of events from GMSA as well as NT Authority Anonymous. So I can go ahead and just uncheck those little checkboxes right there, which will change and remove some of these other objects to really see, okay, it was Cameron Dench made 7 different changes out there, which was outside of his normal activity. So we can quickly get you to the different data you're looking at so you can make relevant decisions. With that said in mind, we understand a lot of SOCs are not necessarily purpose-built for your identity space. We can port off just the signals of just the state-based information, the change information that needs to go to a SOC analyst, and we already have direct integration with Sentinel, Splunk, or email. We're looking at doing other integrations in the future with ServiceNow and other different platforms. If you have any recommendations or guidance as far as what you would like to see, please let us know. And that is my high-level overview of Security Guardian.